Welcome to the FarmBits podcast.
FarmBits is proudly produced by the Nebraska Digital Agriculture team and hosted by students at the University of Nebraska.
The FarmBits podcast comes to you each week to discuss the trends, the realities, and the value of digital agriculture.
Through interviews with expert producers and innovators from across the agriculture industry, we hope that you step away from each episode with new practical knowledge of digital agricultural technology.
Hello, FarmBits followers, and welcome to another episode of the FarmBits podcast. I'm Camila Rodriguez.
And I'm Victor Ferreira, and we are glad to have you with us as we begin our discussion on soil health and associated technologies.
How do soil microbiome analysis technologies contribute to understand and enhance soil health?
Yeah, that's the new part that was added to this whole the promotion of soil health is the biological part. So now with technologies, that have evolved over time, of course, that is still like evolving and we're still trying to connect the functionality of those findings from this microbial analysis has helped us to determine, what are the who is there, right? Who is there? Like, for example, in the past, it was like, just a count of microbes that were present in the soil, but we were not able to identify them, neither know what were their roles, right? So now with technology, we could quantify, find out, for example, if we are talking about nitrogen fixation in soybean. So who are they? Who are those nitrogen fixers, right? In the past, we were just talking about one a bacteria that fixes nitrogen, but actually there are a big array of nitrogen fixers present in those soybean nodules. And that's surprising, right? But then on the other hand, we just recently discovered that there are some grasses, well, not recently, it was known in sugarcane and also in rice, but now we are seeing in other grasses switchgrass that is native to the North American continent, that in these switchgrass stands, there are some free living nitrogen fixers that can contribute with some amount of nitrogen to the whole, budget, which is significant. In terms of grasses, these free living nitrogen fixers can contribute 50 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. That is, good because that's the total amount of nitrogen that the plant uptakes during the year. So great, right? But it was with isotopes. So here it comes the technology that we are able to determine these parts, to study these processes and functions of microbes. So using isotopes like 15, nitrogen, and in the term of gas, in a gaseous form, we're able to determine who is there and what are they doing and how much are they producing, in terms of nitrogen, that they're fixing and contributing to the system. So that's the beauty of, that how technology has evolved and allow us to study these biological processes that takes at a very, very, very small scale. But when you quantify them in a year, they add up to significant amount of nutrients, right? In this case, that contribute to the whole system in a positive way. So that really helped us to study, the play, how much, so who are they, the role that they play, and also in which part of the nutrient cycling are they involved, right? Because now we are using these engineers, right, like the micro, meso, and macro fauna in our advantage, right? Because now we are trying to work with nature and try to rely more on these processes more than external sources adding more nitrogen to the system. So what if we just rely on these microbes? right, to build more healthy systems. So that is something that, in order to manage properly our fields, we need to understand what is the role that each of these microbes are playing, when and where they are playing, because, it cannot be generalized, cannot be something that we also can take for granted. Because as the example I share with you guys, the free living nitrogen fixers, from a research that I worked on while I was in Michigan State, we saw that as opposed or as compared to the regular symbiotic nitrogen fixation, these free living nitrogen fixers are have an episodic function. So they turn on and turn off depending on the moisture conditions. So that's why also they don't provide much nitrogen to the system, but it is good enough for a grass, but probably not that much for another plant. A soybean, like a legume. That's why they are very different from each other, have work under different conditions. So that's what I can add here in the technologies that are evolving and help us to understand other systems.
And just by curiosity, you can only define microbes by analysis, soil analysis, or is there a sensor already that you can go in the field and detect which microbes you have in that soil?
Yeah, that's a good question. All depends on your intent, or what is the information that you're trying to get, right? So from the soil health perspective, we have from the biological indicators, in order to know if we have an active or a living ecosystem, we measure active carbon, and that is, just an incubation of 24 hours where we measure carbon dioxide. So a system that is healthy and has microbes, will decompose faster, right? So that, it will respire CO2 more than a soil that doesn't have microbes. So that is, another way to determine that we have, a good presence of microbes in place. So that, disregarding who is there, and it's just are they active or not? If they're active, then definitely they will respire more carbon than a soil that is, probably a polluted soil will definitely not be a one that you will measure high levels of CO2. So that is, an indirect way to measure. And also there's other incubation for nitrogen, somewhat similar as the one that I'm explaining to you for carbon.
Oh, Caro, you mentioned about drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, as we know, UAV. But how are those being employed to analyze and monitor soil health?
Right. So earlier I mentioned to you that, with drones, they are the ones commonly used, have sensors that measure NDVI, right? The greenness of plants, and knowing that plants can serve as other sensors, right, can tell us a lot about the nutritional levels of our field. That will be coupled with measurements that we could do it on the ground, right? We could, after determining areas that are yellowish, right, plants that are not looking healthy, we could come and do some soil sampling there and analyze different soil health parameters to match and see what is the problem, right? If it's a nutritional deficiency, it is a compaction issue, it is waterlogging issue. So that's some aspects that we will combine to have a better idea, or have this system approach in place and study the data set in a better way.
And what are the latest advancements in soil carbon measurement technologies and their implications for?
Yeah, so regarding the advances in soil carbon measurements, we have the infrared spectroscopy technology, we have the isotopes, and of course that, those are the ones that can allow us to do low cost and high throughput in a high throughput way, right, to monitor big areas of land. Of course, that in some cases, some farmers work with big companies and do it with satellite imagery, where they, connect that information with like sometimes like soil color that they tie with the information that they get from the soil survey website, pair all that information, tie it with the environmental information, and then put it into models that, could be Daysent, could be Century, where they start to quantify the amount of soil carbon that they had, at a certain point in time. And then they can forecast it with, if there is an adoption of a new practice that will, is promised to increase the organic carbon content. So that's something that, particularly the infrared spectroscopy technology is not new. It was developed like in the, in early 2000s, and but is not widely used, right? So we are not hearing for people that are like, have all of these this technology in place, and you still hear from farmers or companies that are like, probably trying to engage with farmers to get into the carbon market. They need to do some soil sampling, to get the baseline and determine what is, the organic carbon levels in their fields before signing contracts, right? So that's something that right now, how people are managing this subject, but we are more into like promoting these high throughput technologies that can help us to quantify and do it more like, more frequently, and also in a bigger area.
Good. So, Caro, do you think all of those technologies you mentioned since we started this episode, do you think this new technology will be more accessible for farmers in a short term, cost-wise?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely I will see that the more that we are going into this carbon market or this carbon intensive scoring that might probably be in place by, by, I don't know, by either the government or I don't know, like in the future, perhaps that's something that it will be regulated in some way, that the people are going to get into like, okay, I want to measure like what's going on in my field. I want to quantify it. And if it's, if it's feasible or if it's attractive for them to join to these different programs, that will be something that, farmers are going to look for different options the technology options to like, do it by themselves, right? Because sometimes the soil analysis are very expensive, that might limit you the number of samples that you are submitting for analysis. And that will bring like lots of bias, because your sample might come from a combined number of samples from like, I don't know, like 100 or 1,000 of acres. And that might not tell you a lot, right? If we know that the soil is heterogeneous. So I would say that, as time goes and as the market fluctuates and, the new regulations probably will come in, the companies also will see that need, right? That demand. And then, they need to come up with different options for farmers to do it, like, cost effectively, and also do it like fast, and will be like something that could be easily managed.
Yeah, talking about fast turning data faster, do you think technology will lead to sensors that monitor in real time the soil aspects?
Yes, we have right now some sensors that are like, can provide us some with real-time information, like the TDRs. These TDRs are sensors that can be installed at different soil depths, and we could get like 3 types of information. soil pH, soil moisture, and soil temperature. And we know that, the soil moisture can help us a lot right here in Nebraska. Water is something that is so valuable. And if you know the fluctuation of the water, you could also, like, farmers could make a more efficient use of their irrigation system, right? So there are, like, already some sensors that are in place, and farmers that, particularly the ones that work on their irrigated fields have in place, so they could have a more effective and efficient management of the resources.
And all the data that is collected with those technologies, do you need specific programs to analyze them or to upload them? Which are the most common programs that are being used for soil health?
That's a good question. So, when you have these sensors in place, those go into a data logger, and then the data logger needs to be connected to a um a data station, right? That will collect all the information from all your data loggers from across your farm. And in terms of the programs, right? So sometimes that information comes as CVS, right? Like some Excel files, right? That you get that data in these formats, and then it will be up to you how to use these data, right? When someone is data savvy, that could be, probably using R and or probably an Excel itself, right? So sometimes there is no need to go too far into the data science and use R for, probably some basic graphs and some basic stats analysis from there. But, in terms of soil health, we don't have a program per se that we use to analyze the data, right? So for us, we get the data, we analyze with different stats programs, or, like, probably make some graphs to understand, like, if there are some patterns. So it goes through different steps, these analysis. So yeah, perhaps, like, precision ag folks use a particular program that I'm not aware. So in that case, from data science, the big data, beyond using statistical softwares, or probably, those are the ones that, my group commonly uses, but perhaps there are others that are available for producers that they can use. And they are, like, probably provided by the companies that um, sold them those technologies.
Caro, since you joined UNL as professor, have you seen across those extension meetings or few days, have you seen more concern from the farmer side about soil health? Increase of the concern, I mean, have you seen that across these years since you joined UNL, or maybe before joining UNL as you were in Michigan?
So yeah, you see a big change, right? I saw the big change from people concerned in yields to people concerned about water quality, environmental, aspects of that, farming are impacting. So I see that change in which farmers want to know more about, what is the impact beyond increasing fertility. So you see them asking about the aspect of the nitrate losses, or they're interested in knowing, like, how diverse is their soils, right, in terms of the micro, meso, and macro fauna, right? So some are, like, concerned that, when they're digging up, like, a square foot of soil, they don't find any worm. So that is something that, they are concerned. But you see that, it's something increasing, and also something that they start to put in the pieces together that, some that have been heavily working on conventional agricultural systems, their family is more prone to have some health issues, right? And that's, either they have been heavily relying on chemicals that are something that is really concerning for them. So I see that awakening, and that, for us to be in this position of promoting other practices, trying to help producers to be more efficient in managing their fields, and also at the same time build or maintain fertility while, doing like other practices or reducing the inputs in their farms. That's something that, right now, that's our goal.
And Caro, do you think there are apps available in website that farmers can just download or go in the website and search for specific factors about their soil health?
Yeah, there are like several apps out there, but if you don't know the basics about soil science, then sometimes that could be a little bit tricky to understand or like interpret. The ones that I liked, if someone asked me about soil science apps, that's the Land PKS. That's developed by the USDA ARS in Jornada, the experimental extension in Jornada. And then we have so like the web soil survey, right? That's a great website. It's not an app. Well, I don't know if they have an app, but it's a great source for producers that are interested in getting to know more about their soils. And then there are like recently new apps that are like, coming out to the market that are free, but is to measure certain soil health properties. Like, for example, there is one to measure aggregate stability. And the name of that app, let me see. That's no. Let's see, no. Yeah, the name is yeah, I'm forgetting and I don't have it here. Yes, I haven't downloaded, but it's one app that was developed by the Soil Health Institute. So there are like several ones, but again, like if you definitely need to know more about your soil, and getting into the web soil survey is the first step that someone should take. Mhm.
Hey, Carol, what is your advice for the agriculture public that wants or would like to work with soil health?
My advice, wow. Okay, so it will be to stay informed, right? Stay informed about the latest advances in soil health science. Join us or learning communities too. So now at UNL, we have a very good program where we promote conferences, workshops, field days, where we have farmers coming in to share their experience on adopting soil health practices. We have also different NGOs or different federal or state agencies that are also coming to share information about their co-share programs that support the adoption of new practices like soil health practices. So I encourage everyone, farmers and practitioners, soil health practitioners, to be on top of the latest advances of soil health and to join our events, right? To keep stay together and learn more about each other, about our experiences from like the research side, right? We have the on-farm research program. All the folks that are involved there, they come and share their experience. And then we have other researchers too, like, sharing with everyone about, using different strategies or technologies. So I think that, as a state engaged in the topic and, join or events to learn more, or even to share their experience, because as I mentioned earlier, like the adoption of a new practice, or like the adoption of technology, there is always a learning curve involved. So it's better to be in that community that probably there will be one person that has already tried that and has overcome that, learning curve, and has come out successful, or probably not, but it is good to hear from the first hand about their experience. So that will be something that I will add there. And yeah, I don't know if I missed something.
And as a student, what would be your advice for students that want to go in the soil health career? Like, what are the profile that student needs to have?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as you guys heard, soil health, like measuring or assessing soil health, is the combination of studying soil physical, chemical, and biological properties. So it's this very holistic approach, right? That combines different parameters. And so for the student is to be able to be open, right? Open and passionate about soils, right? Soil science in general. It needs to be someone that really cares about the future of soil, and that, and acknowledges that a healthy soil will, provide or support a healthy community. So that is, my advice, to be someone to be really open to learn different parameters, different applications too, because when we're doing a soil health assessment, might not be always in croplands, right? So in my case, in my program, we do soil health assessments in forest, in grassland, in rangeland, in croplands, in native sites. So different ecosystems, right? That you might not use the same tools always, but you are like looking into like measuring what is the soil health status of that ecosystem.
Hey, is there any topic that you would like to add that wasn't discussed?
Well, not a topic, but actually extend the invitation to our listeners to join to our upcoming 2024 soil health conferences. So we are putting together a wonderful agenda at both events. One is in Hastings. Well, let's start first with February 29th. We are hosting our first soil health conference. That's in West Point. The second conference is at Hastings. That is next March 5th. So I hope that the listeners will join us at this event. And during these events, we have farmers, panelists. Also, we have multi-sector panelists that will include the NRDs, NRCS. We will have Bayer. We will have also the Nature Conservancy, ag director. So it's going to be fun event. And also we have some, we will share some updates of UNL research on, soil health. So we will have some of our colleagues, different faculty talking about the economics of cover crops, interseeding cover crops, and the ways to graze them, as well as how to build carbon with the addition of manure in the system. So there are like several opportunities for participants to interact and learn more about like different soil health practices, not only cover crops or not till. So we always keep very diverse our agenda, so we could serve a different farmers, different management systems, and we could keep it like very broad, so our farmers can learn something new always every time that they come. So we're looking forward to having them over. And those are the two events that we have right now in place, but certainly there will be others planned for summer and fall.
can our listeners find the dates for those events?
Right. So those are already in the extension calendar embedded. If they are not, I encourage them to email me to cCordova4@unl.com, or visit our crop watch page of soil health program, where they can find there, within our own calendar, we have all of these events there. So I hope that they can, listeners can subscribe to the extension, to the crop watch magazine, so they could get always notifications about our events.
Thank you for taking the time to join us today on the FarmBits podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the podcast to be informed about the latest content each week.
We welcome your feedback, so if you have comments or questions for us, please reach out to us over email, on Twitter, or in the reviews section of your favorite podcast platform. Our contact information can be found in the show notes.
We would like to thank Nebraska Extension for their support for this podcast and their commitment to providing high-quality informational material to members of the agricultural community in Nebraska and beyond.
The opinions expressed by the host and guests on this podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the views of Nebraska Extension or the University of Nebraska Lincoln.
We look forward to you joining us next week for another episode of FarmBits.